Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with Judy Copenbarger. How are you, Judy?
I am awesome. How are you, Carlos?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking. This is another beautiful Tuesday morning, folks. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Carlos Garcia, here with Judy Copenbarger on Money Truth Moments. If you are not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. Please make sure that you share this out also with your friends, family, neighbors. There is a lot of great content and information following Judy, so make sure that you are following her as well too. We have a great show for you guys today. We will be talking about the 5 pillars of finance, and I can't wait to get started on this because we're going to do a deep dive on this. And you've heard Judy talk about this before. We've talked about this also with the integrity wheel, which we covered last week. And in today's show, we definitely are going to be talking about the 5 pillars of finance. So, without further ado, Judy, please enlighten us. What is this whole 5 pillars of finance all about?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, every decision that you make, every choice that you make every single day that has anything to do with money or finances happens in one or more of the 5 areas of finance, what I like to refer to as the 5 pillars. So we always have this offensive, defensive game going on. There's always things that we do financially that are protecting us, and there are things that we do that are helping us grow our wealth. So those are kind of the big picture, offense and defense. There are 2 pillars that are more defensive, like protective, and 2 pillars that are more offensive. And then there's one that's kind of neutral. But if you consider IRS to be a predator, you could call it defensive too when it comes to tax planning. So let's talk about the 5 pillars. The protective ones are legal and insurances. The neutral one, or the other protective one, is taxation. And then we have cash flows and reserves, and we have investments. So let's take a closer look at some of those. When we're looking at legal, we're talking about legal documents that actually protect you. So it might be in the area of legacy when you're looking at wills, trusts, business succession documents, buy-sell agreements. It might be things that you're doing to protect your succession of your business long-term and all the subsidiaries that go with that. It might be entities, the way you have those set up for tax protection and for liability protection, like LLCs, S Corps, C Corps. Most people start up a business with just a DBA, doing business as, and that's just a sole proprietorship. But when does it make sense to have a partnership? When does it make sense to incorporate? All of those documents and all of those decisions come under that legal pillar of finance. Then we look at another area that is more defensive or protective, and that's the insurances. And that's our first line of defense all the time. So that would be a way to subrogate, a way to yourself, your business, and your family in the event that something happened that could be catastrophic financially. And the easiest example everybody that drives knows is you have to have auto insurance. You want to have auto insurance. Especially here on the West Coast. In California, we're very litigious. And if anything happens, you're going to have a lawsuit. You'll be on one side or the other of it, right? So you want to make sure that you have insurance that can not only fix your car or replace your car in a bad accident, but take care of people that might be hurt from that accident. And that's really important to have the right kind of coverages. So that's auto insurance. Property and casualty insurance, that we often refer to as P&C insurance, has to do with replacing a thing. If there's a tort, and a tort is when you hurt somebody's stuff or hurt the person. If there's a tort or some liability associated with property or somebody's body, like tortious, hurting somebody, whether it's an assault or whether it's some liability, negligence or something where somebody really gets hurt, you want to have the coverage to make sure that now they're not going to come after your business. They're not going to come after your home. They're not going to come after all the money that you've saved and worked so hard to accumulate. So the insurance would be that first line of defense that pays a claim to take care of someone who's hurt or fix their car or fix your car, so you don't have to dig into your deep pockets to do that. So P&C insurance is important. Liability insurance and coverages if you own a business are very important, because if you have somebody that works for you and they're not so honest and they end up embezzling or stealing equipment or something, it makes sure that you have that replaced so you can continue to do your business without having to spend all that money. And the same thing at home. You know, if something happens to you at home, you can have theft coverage, which is often associated with your house insurance, right? Your homeowner's insurance. Um, Anything from fire, flood. And one thing that we've been spending a lot of time on lately here in California, we have both of those every year, almost, you know, like clockwork. We have the fires, it burns off all the trees and all of the grass. And then we have the floods in the spring. And there are zones now that insurers will not even give you insurance. There are people in flood zones and mudslide zones, people in fire zones where they can't even get the coverage. So it's essential that you have a resource to be able to go to make sure that your house is going to be covered and your car is going to be covered in the event of some kind of a natural disaster like that. Let's see. Insurance. I'm going to look at my notes here. Speaking of liability, I've got a client right now that is in the middle of 3 class action lawsuits that are big, big, big dollars. He owns a lot of property and has been very successful in his life. But they come after you if they see those deep pockets, if they see that you own a business, you have interest, or you have real estate, and they know there's money there to capitalize those businesses, you are a target. And so you want to make sure you have the right entities, legal, and the right insurances under the insurance umbrella or the pillar to make sure that you're covered and that you can continue. Is this making sense so far?
So far, so good. You know what? It's a lot of great content, but this will also give me an opportunity to welcome folks again. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about the 5 pillars of finance today. Judy is sharing a lot of the wisdom. You've heard us talk about 5 pillars of finance. You've heard her talk about it. If you have got her book, Money, Truth, and Life, you'll know that she talks about this specifically in the book as well too. And if you haven't got a copy of it, you better make sure you do. So please check her out at judycopenbarger.com. All of her social media information is there. And we'll talk a little bit more about resources a little bit later in the show, because I don't want to take too much time on in between the pillars on this, because there's just so much great content. So, hey, by all means, please keep us going.
All right. We've covered 2 pillars, 2 defensive pillars or protective pillars, legal and insurance. Let's talk a little bit about taxation. So most people, when you think about tax, they think, well, I pay a little sales tax when I go to the store or the mall. I pay a little income tax. That's the big one that we have to put all the papers out on the dining room table, sort through every spring, you know, to make sure that the CPA is covered, or you go on TurboTax and get it done. And that hassle that comes with paying taxes, and sometimes the nail biting that happens waiting to see what the bill's going to be, right? Not only for state, but for federal. But there are a lot of taxes. There are hundreds of taxes that most people pay, and you might even never know. The excise taxes and all kinds of taxes on everything that you're doing in life, lots of taxes. One tax that right now is a big deal in California is the Proposition 19. It has to do with property tax, the step up in basis, and how you can protect that moving forward. So in California, for a long time, we have enjoyed the ability, when you pass away, to leave your children your property. They get a step up in basis, which means now they don't have to pay capital gains on the whole value that was accumulated during mom and dad's lifetime, or grandma and grandpa's lifetime. That's a huge gift. Well, for some reason in California in November, everybody voted. I think they were misled, honestly, but they voted to pass Proposition 19, which for the most part takes that away. So now there's a certain amount that you can protect to not have that step up in basis, but almost everything else now is going to be taxed at a higher rate. The other thing that it did was it wiped out, for the most part, Proposition 13, which allows you to keep your property tax the same way it was for mom and dad when you inherit their home. Now you get to pay, if mom and dad bought a house for $50,000, they've lived there 40 years, and in California now it's worth $1 million or $2 million. The difference is going to be about $20-some thousand per year in property tax that is now increased because of the new assessment based on this new law that we have. Awful, awful, awful. It's great if you're not a property owner. It's awful if you're a property owner. So the reason that I brought that up is right now we have until mid-February for people that want to plan and use the old rules. They can do that. They can create a certain trust and do that. But we only have a couple weeks left to get everything done, filed, and recorded. So I spent a lot of this weekend helping people do that. People that know the law is going to impact them and it makes sense for them to do the planning. I've been helping people do that. So lots of calls over the weekend, a couple yesterday on Monday, and we've been busy with that. But that's one tax that impacts people. You've got the capital gains. When you buy something, real property or even stock, and it increases in value, you pay tax on the increase unless you pass away with it, other than in California now, real estate. But there's that tax that people are aware of. And property tax is one that's worth thinking about and planning for. But for most people, it's income tax planning. And a lot of that is coordinated with the type of investments and the type of tax structure you have in your investments, making sure that that's right. There's so many ways that you can eliminate or totally mitigate tax if you just do the planning. And that's just having a good planner, a good advisor, a good CPA, someone that knows the rules. And just a little note about CPAs. We love them. We need them. We've got them in our lives.
Right.
But CPAs look at what already happened. They're not programmed to look at what will happen. And so they're more about recording what has happened and coming up with the taxes and trying to put everything in the right columns and counting those pennies. Most CPAs are not thinking about what can we do next year in terms of planning. So when we're looking back and recording what happened, we have a better result, a better outcome. So that's one thing to look for if you're using a CPA or need to consider that. Find one that is really good about projecting forward and looking at what's possible, not just what happened. That's one thing I'd say about that, the tax area. Okay, let's look at pillar number 4, investments and growth assets. So investments and growth assets cover three areas for the most part. There's the traditional investments you think about with the IRAs and the 401ks and the stocks and bonds and all those portfolios you have to grow your money, right, other than cash. It also includes business interests. So if you own your own business or you have a partial interest in a business or family business, something like that, this would come under that area. And also your real estate. So I've got clients that have mostly real estate, very little capital, but all of their holdings and investments are real estate related for their income flow and then for their succession. So that's a great way to go, by the way. Just yesterday, I was with a couple in Newport Beach. He is a World War II veteran, which is so exciting. Wow. There's left. What an honor to just be with them. And I had another advisor that is now out of state asked me to go and help them. They have been harmed many, many times in their life by wealth managers, investment managers, people. Wow. And they really have a low level of trust for money people, right? So I was able to distinguish with them the difference between planning, strategic planning, and fiduciary work from selling an investment or trying to gather assets that I get paid to manage, because we don't operate that way. But it's really important to have that distinction when you're out there doing investment management or looking for someone that can help you with allocating those investments. But it just, it's bittersweet. You have this great experience and you're able to help them move forward. But for decades, they've just not been well served. And I hear that a lot. But great couple, great meeting. I'm looking forward to serving them well. And so that's investments. Another thing that came up yesterday in this meeting was, what do you think about Bitcoin? So I was able to say, Bitcoin, gold, all the stuff that you're getting sold all over the internet, on TV. There's even commercials about silver, whatever, all the newest trend that somebody's trying to push off on you. I say the best thing, I could spend the time to go through that. The best thing is to go to my YouTube channel, and I've got videos on all of that stuff. How much gold should I buy, if any? How much precious metal should I own, if any? When should I have more? When should I, divest, get rid of some of that? I talk about Bitcoin. I talk about all the stuff, that everybody's hearing about. And you will learn, if you watch those videos, why Bitcoin and Beanie Babies have a lot in common. So you can look forward to learning that. That'll give you a perspective when you hear that story. Another area, pillar number 5, is cash flow and cash reserves. So cash flow, Not for everyone, cash flow is not equal and even. It's not automated. So for people that have a job, you get paid every week or you get paid twice a month, on the 1st and the 15th, you can pay whatever bills. But not everybody gets paid that way. If you have your own business, for example, and you put yourself on payroll, that's fine. But a lot of business owners take draws. They just say, I need a chunk. I need 2,000. I need 5,000. I need 20,000. They take chunks. And then you've got people that work on commission or get bonuses. They just get this big pop, and then there's nothing, 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 and then a big pop.
Right.
I think of realtors. They sell a property and they make 20, 50, 100,000, whatever it is. And then they might not sell anything for a month or two. Hopefully they do, but it doesn't always happen. And then people that are on like pharmaceutical reps, they have a base, but then they get commissions. A lot of people in the sales force, they're on commission. So you might get a big bonus and then nothing happens for a while. So how do you even out the ride? How do you create a spending plan that works with that unequal and uneven distribution of income? How do you do that? Well, there's an art and a science to that. And so we love to help people do that. That's actually in the book, and it's in the online mastery program. So I encourage you to look at that if you have that kind of an income and you want to just kind of take the stress out of that. So that's covered in cash flow. And cash reserves is the other side of that. How much capital should I have set aside to grow my business or start my business, or to just make sure that I've got a safety net for my household? And of course, it depends on the income that you have. It depends on how many dependents, how many kids are in the house. We needed a lot more cash reserves when we had 5 kids in school and all their sports and all their music and private tuition and all of that. And now that they're up and grown, we don't need as many cash reserves, and our cash flows are a little bit different too. So it kind of changes with the season of life. But you want to know in the season that you're in, what's appropriate for you, how much you should have in cash that you can get your hands on, and then how to even out the cash flow. Did that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And it actually raises a few questions for me too, which I'm sure it's come up in our previous shows too. So one of the things before moving forward is, can you talk a little bit more about cash in hand? I know we talked about liquid assets and all of that as well too, but there's been questions that come up, like people don't really even know how to even go about that. So maybe we can point them in the right direction to look. Obviously, we're going to talk about the resources available at judycopenbarger.com, but I also want them to hear it from you as well too.
Yeah. Well, I think as a rule of thumb, if you really have no idea, some people don't save enough, but there's just as many people that save too much. And there are risks associated with both. And risk management is a big part of strategic financial planning. So how do we reduce the risk, get everything growing the way it should, cut the fees, cut the tax? Those are kind of our big objectives all the time. So when it comes to cash reserves, as a rule of thumb, if you're single and you're the only source of income, you'll want to have 4, 5, or 6 months of your basic expenses stashed up. Those are the nuts you want to save in the tree, and have them available where you can get your hands on them. Now, it doesn't have to be just sitting in your credit union or under your mattress or in your bank. It can be in liquid investments that you can, in a day or two get your hands on, right? Because often we don't have an emergency that we need $20,000 by tomorrow morning, right? We'll have a few days. So you could have it invested but still available, but it needs to be liquid. So calculate, you have in your spending plan, you have fixed expenses and flexible expenses. Fixed expenses are the ones you can't do without: your insurance premium, your housing, your gas, your food, things that you've got to have. Flexible are things like going out, things that are kind of optional. So we want to just look at the fixed expenses, what it takes to just keep your life going where you're not losing ground or missing payments, on your mortgage or something. And 4, 5, or 6 months of that. And that'll give you kind of an idea. So maybe it's 20,000, maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 100,000. It just depends on how much you spend, what's going to keep your lifestyle basics going. So that's how much you should have if you're single. If you're married and there's 2 incomes, or if you have outside income coming in, you have rental property, you have pensions, you have some kind of a other income that you don't have to go generate, you can have less than that. So maybe it's only 2 or 3 months of basic expenses or fixed expenses that you need to have in reserves. And all the rest of the money beyond that should be what I call below the line. When we put a graph out there, it should be working. So you want Mr. Money out there working as hard as you've worked, to go get your money.
Mhm.
You want to put Mr. Money to work. So don't be too cash heavy, because that's a different kind of risk. You're losing to inflation. You don't want your money sitting there, but you want to have enough that you can get your hands on in case something happens. And now we don't have to go spend interest to borrow money on a credit card or at the bank.
No, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that also. And folks, this also brings me to another point where I'm going to jump in right now and just talk about judycopenbarger.com and the resources available there. Judy's got, like she mentioned before, she's got her YouTube channel. You can connect through the website on there. There's a lot of great videos that are free for you to take a look at some different topics that she covers. There's also, you can order also her new book, Money, Truth, and Life. Great book. Congratulations on being the #1 bestseller across several platforms, including Amazon. That's right.
It's been great.
Yeah, and then also she's got also the online mastery program. And I'd like for to take a moment right now for you to talk a little bit about the book as a resource, and also money, the online mastery program as well too, please.
Of course. Well, both of them are great resources that you want to keep handy to repeat, because there's, a lot of information, and you've noticed today, we covered a lot. Oh my goodness. If you're taking notes, you probably have a few now. So if you have the book, you can go back, keep it on the shelf. You can go back and look at it again, and then go through that pillar of finance at your house when you're reviewing your insurances, looking at your life insurance, your health insurance, the options you have at work for insurance. When you're going through that, then you can refer back to the book and go, okay, here's what that is. Here's what I have, or here's what I don't have. Maybe there's a gap. Should I do something about it? And the online course is the same way. So the online mastery course allows you, if you like video, if you prefer live conversation, it's kind of like this. It goes through all of those pillars of finance class by class. And right now you can watch as many as you want to for a week without paying any subscription fees. So you can watch classes on insurance, watch classes on wills and trusts, all the different kinds of trusts. Do I have one? Should I have one? What does it do? When would it make sense? All of that. When does it not make sense? Somebody's just selling me something. It goes through what's a stock, what's a bond, what's the market, what's the investment market, securities and equity. What the heck is all that? Those numbers scrolling across it on that
Right.
night. What is that? So I go through and explain all of that step by step, so you can really understand it and integrate that information into the planning that you're doing at your house. And when you know better, you do better. So your decisions will elevate, and you'll make fewer mistakes, and you'll be able to navigate very well. That's what the course does. And I hope you'll go visit there. Again, it's free for a week. You can watch as many classes as you want before they turn on the subscription. And I encourage you to have that as a resource you can keep going back to.
Excellent. I appreciate you sharing that. And also, I'm going to take this moment to also announce, folks, that I'm very excited at the fact too that Judy is going to be also having her own podcast coming up in February. She's also going to be in Clubhouse, so be on the lookout for that too. So we'll have more announcements. So you talk about resources. There's no reason for you not to be following Judy. Learn from her wisdom. You can listen to her in a car while you're working, while you're in the office. So we are making this available for you guys in all kinds of streams and platforms too. But I also want to clarify that it's not that Judy's also wants to be everywhere all the time. This is all about her giving back in her legacy. And I think that's also very important to acknowledge that all the work that you've done has never been about money. I mean, the whole fact about money, truth, and life has been more about Judy's legacy and the wisdom that she shares, is willing to share also with everybody out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This is my legacy. I've worked with clients, still do, but I've worked with clients for 40 years and used to have thousands of them of my own. Now I don't. I've gone virtual. And so it's about all of the lessons, the life stories, the visuals that work, where people go, oh, I finally understand that. I finally know what to do step by step at my house. And being able to take that collection of visuals and stories that help people really get relevant information, like now I know what to do at my house, that is my legacy. So putting that out into the world through books, through online programs, through videos, just making sure people that are looking for the information now have a reliable source. I call it the truth about money, not what somebody's trying to sell you, not what somebody's trying to entice you to do or benefit from, but just good information that'll help you make the best decisions and strategic ones for your family and your legacy. That's what my legacy is all about.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing that as well, too. What I like to do now is actually take us to the best part of our show, right? Which is our Money Truth Challenge.
Money Truth Challenge time. Let's do it.
That's right.
Are you ready?
So last week, I am ready. I'm ready to share from last week. So I know that last week you gave us some homework, right? We wrote it down, some of us that are paying attention.
Yeah.
And we talked about the integrity wheel. So there's different spokes on the integrity wheel, and you had us choose one specific one. Well, we could do a little bit of fine tuning, right, to make it a little stronger. There was actually two for me, but I'm going to focus on the health and fitness one that we talked about on there. Obviously, with the whole COVID thing, the gyms have been closed. My 5 a.m. workouts have been shot. Haven't really gone to do what my normal routine was. So I figure I've also feel that I'm kind of lacking in that just because I don't have that drive to drive way out there to a new gym, those that are open. So 3 activities that you also asked us to do as part of this homework. I think it's definitely getting back up at 5, going out there, whether walking, doing bike riding, whatever it is around the neighborhood, taking care of some of that, maybe doing a break time during lunchtime. So instead of just sitting down for lunch, in the office, just get out there and do some more added steps, right? So that'll help in that transition. And then also doing a little bit again. It's baby steps, right? For lack of a better example. So I think having you get into our focusing on this as well, and for me, for the health and fitness, is really kind of kickstarted me back in the right direction. So thank you for that, and that's what I wanted to share from last week's challenge.
I love it. And in the same area of wellness and fitness, one of my things was hydration, and so here I am, making sure that I hydrate well. I'm getting my water in. I've got it in for at least a week now, and making sure that I'm sleeping more. So here's to you.
There we go.
Drinking my water. Yeah. Here's your challenge for this week. I want you to pick another area of life, pick another spoke from that integrity wheel, a sector of life. An example would be like your home environment. So I'll give you the challenge, and then I'll give you an example of how this might work out. So the first thing that you're going to do with pen and paper is write down one area of life that you want to improve. You want to work on it. I want you to rate it. So if 10 is really great and 1 is, no, this really sucks. What is your number? Okay, 4, not so good. It's a 7, not too bad, right? What would make it a 10? And write down what would make it a 10, how you feel, what you're doing, the perception, what's happening in business, financially, whatever the area of life is. List 3 activities that you can do more, better, different. 3 things that you can add as daily activities or do more of them. And then number 3, do something today. So your example, let's take home environment. Some people struggle with collecting too much stuff. You think about the hoarder show, where it really gets out of hand. And if that area of life is not working well, it's going to impact every other area, finances, relationships, everything, health over time. So an example would be in home environment, a few things that you could do. Maybe organize your garage. You always think you should do it. Maybe it's time to do it. I'm impressed if you've already done that. Some people you could eat off their garage floor. That's yep. Just go through the kitchen drawers, maybe 1 every day. Just go through the drawers, clean them out, put stuff that should be there, get rid of the junk drawer. Everybody has the junk drawer. Go through that, put everything where it should go or get rid of it. And you can give it away or throw it away. You don't have to keep everything. Another thing, maybe cleaning floors. If you just focus on one area, the walls, the doorknobs, that's important now with all this disease stuff, right? Maybe clean the floors. And if you don't like to do it, get a housekeeper and just focus on the floors. Go through, get all the dust bunnies out from under the bed and around the corners, wax everything, vacuum everything, maybe get a carpet cleaner. Just think about, are my floors clean? Something that we often, it's easy to ignore. Another thing, in your car, do the windows or go to the car wash and let them do the windows, do the hubcaps, clean out the truck. Do you still have umbrellas in there? Do you need them? Do you still have blankets in there from the beach with sand on them? Do you need them? What do you have in, what should you have in there? Maybe you should have something in your trunk that you don't have in there. Extra water, a battery charger, extra power, power tools, whatever it is. What should be in there? What shouldn't be in there? Just kind of look at it with fresh eyes. If I just bought this car, what would I have in my trunk? And it might help you organize and rethink what should be there. And then your sock drawer. Everybody's got one of those, and there's stuff in there that you don't need. How many years have those socks been there? Underwear, I've got 7-year-old underwear. Probably don't need them. They're at the bottom, right?
Yep.
One little thing. So the idea is just write down 3 things that you can do, as little or as big as you choose, and then do something today that will move you toward that 10 in that area of life, or that spoke of life.
Awesome. And I laugh because a lot of the things you touched on, I'm like, these are things I got to put on my checklist to make sure that I get to as well too. So I appreciate that. That's a great challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do that. So do something. Take one box and empty it. Go through the library and give away some books that, you're not going to ever need. So there's something that you can do if home environment is one of the areas you want to work on.
Judy, thank you. Another fantastic challenge. I can't wait to share this for next week because I am going to make it a priority starting today to make sure that I document all of this as well. So
I want to hear about your sock drawer next week.
That's right. That's right. All those singles are going to be just tossed out once and for all, right? Forget trying to find a pair.
I know.
So, folks, we're at the end of the show. It's been a pleasure again, Judy. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I always love our challenges. It's always fun after we talk about a serious subject, but it's also very educational as well. Folks, if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. Again, she shared that there's a lot of wealth of information, free information as well, for you guys to be able to check out. Judy, any final words?
No, but just make sure you do something today in one area of life that'll make it better and make it a great day. Awesome. Thank you, Judy. Folks, have an amazing Tuesday, and we'll see you guys. Remember, every Tuesday, 8 a.m., Money Truth Moments with Judy Copenbarger. Till then.